With the state of our nation continuing to deteriorate and the threats to the everyday person continuing to grow, people are starting to talk about what they can do in their everyday lives to promote their own safety and security even further. And while this has been discussed many times in the past throughout all of the years, I think it's time we revisit that topic. So today, we're going to talk about the what, when, and why of vehicle kits and truck guns. The topic of truck guns and vehicle kit has been a well debated one for many, many years now. And normally the conversation does not revolve around whether you are allowed to do it, but more so on the fact of should you do it or what are you even going to do with it to begin with. And we're going to talk about some of that today and a whole lot more. But first, guys, please like, comment, subscribe to the channel. At the time of the posting of this video, we are just shy of 20,000 followers. Once we get there, we're going to do an awesome giveaway. I appreciate all of the support you guys have continued to give us, even though we've been a little slow in 2024. We're ready to kick things back up. So please, guys, show us the support. We appreciate it a ton. So, vehicle kit. Once again, people commonly discuss, should you even be doing it at all? And prior to 2020, the general thought around, active shooter situations, self defense situations, so on and so forth, was you were probably faced with a single lone gunman, normally a pistol, maybe a crappy shotgun or a stock long rifle, and the attacks weren't necessarily very complex. They were very mental health related in nature. But now with 2020, with a lot more heated and active civil unrest during election season, even as we are here in 2024, working towards our own presidential election once again, on top of the threats from, foreign bad actors, whether they be Islamic extremists, some sort of sleeper cells from Russia, China, Iran, whatever it might be, those threats are here. And unfortunately, we have to face the reality that there's a very good chance that one day you happen to be wrong place, wrong time. And you are faced with, a very complex issue that you have to try and deal with. And the question is, can you handle that with your CCW? And the answer may be no. Now, the question arises, should you be getting involved further? Should you be going out of your way to pursue, an active shooter or deterring some sort of, large scale threat from your community? Some people will say, no, that's a job for first responders. I say, phooey. You should not rely on anybody for your safety and security. You should be your own first responder. And more people that think like that, the more people in your community that you get to have that mindset, the better off you are going to be when something does happen. Now, we still have to take into considerations of first responders and all that type of stuff, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. But regardless, there's a lot of us, whether you are a military veteran, an active first responder, a plumber, an electrician, a mechanic, a welder, it doesn't matter. There are those of us that feel the sense of duty and the need to, protect and step forward and take on that challenge, head first. And I think that's awesome. Some people are of the mindset when concealed carrying that I'm considering concealed carrying for my own self-defense and the immediate safety of those I find myself around. Some people may not seek out, the threats and try to eliminate it. Others are on the other side of the fence. Others are, hey, there's a bad guy and he needs to be shot in the face a whole bunch. So I'm going to go get him regardless of what's going on. Now, that might not always be applicable to everybody. You may have your kids with you. You may have your 60-year-old grandmother with you. You may have, that girl that you're out on a second date with who has no idea about any of this type of stuff and is completely new to this mindset. And you can't exactly just ditch her during an active shooter to, run off and go deal with a threat depending on what's going on. Is that threat directly in front of you in that room, between you and the exit? Or were you walking to your car and started hearing shooting behind you back in that store, in that restaurant, in that movie theater, whatever it might be? So there's a lot of things we have to think about before we get to the cool, sexy stuff in the duffel bag in the trunk of our car. There's a lot of things that we have to think about. There's a lot of mental exercises that has to be done. You should know the legalities and, the rules and all of that goes on with, your local jurisdictions. In most places in the United States, you can carry around, some gear and a truck gun in your car, and there's no harm, no foul. You're completely within your legal right to do so, as is intended. And other people live in communist states where that's not allowed. and that's an issue for you to tackle on your own. Nonetheless, something that we have to consider is all of the legalities of everything. So, this all starts at the CCW. For myself, those that have watched the channel for a while or have seen me on other platforms, I carry a Glock 19, pretty much stock, with a TLR-7 weapon light on it, and a TXC appendix holster, and a single spare magazine, along with everything else that goes in my pockets. Now, if you're not already concealed carrying on a normal everyday basis, and you've skipped straight to truck gun, there may be a time and place for that, but we probably need to take a step backwards and look at the concealed carry side of things. You are more likely to be faced immediately with an active shooter threat, or some sort of horrible attack while you are immediately somewhere, and not necessarily when you're just happen to be standing near or around your vehicle and can quickly grab your truck gun, dawn kit, and go shoot that bad guy in the face. So concealed carrying everywhere on a normal basis is the first step to all of this. Now, when it comes to storing kits in your vehicle, there's a lot of people with a lot of opinions. For me, I have a green 511 duffel bag in here. It does not say 511 super clear anywhere on this bag. There are no patches, there are no name tapes, there are no cool guy stickers, nothing. It is a plain green duffel bag. I could have got a black duffel bag, but I got green because all my kit's green, medic bag's green, my OCD kind of just stuck in with that kind of stuff. But regardless, nothing that screams kit in this. It just happens to be, a bag that looks kind of heavy. Looks like it's full. Some people walk around with a Door Explorer backpack because they're like, they'll never think that I have a folding AR in my Door Explorer backpack. But the odd part is you're a grown man walking around with a Door Explorer backpack. Some people use guitar cases. Some people use like a work laptop briefcase for some sort of PDW build, a personal defense weapon. Some people have kit built out so slick that it's just armor and, just their folding rifle with a single mag, to whatever that is. And it fits in their work backpack. Whatever that might be, however you decide to carry your stuff, try to make it, unsuspicious to some extent. For me, this bag stays, in my vehicle, so I'm not necessarily worried about it being low pro all the time. I do not live in the city. I live in the woods. Probably indicative because the fact that you guys will hear a ton of chickens throughout this YouTube video. Um, only places I really go is the gym, my house, and the firehouse. Other than that, I'm going to parks and other properties and stuff like that to train with the buddies. I don't necessarily just go out on the town for several hours or work downtown or something like that where I'm parking somewhere unsecured for long periods of time. But this could be something that you have to analyze. Are you a person that where you work, your parking lot is private, it's secured by a gate, a fence, a security guard, whatever that might be? Are you parking on the street outside of work? Is the possibility that someone breaks into your car a high chance? And if so, you need to take steps to mitigate that. Maybe you scale down your vehicle kit so it can come into work with you if you're able to get that kind of stuff into work. So everybody's situation is different. You just kind of got to think in detail about what it is that you're trying to accomplish and what limitations you may face, because the reality is that we all have some sort of limitations. So, getting into the actual kit itself, my kit is built out to actively respond to active shooter, attacks or small guerrilla element style attacks from like Islamic extremists, something like that, because bad dudes need to be shot in the face, and that's just the way I live my mindset. So, when I open up my bag, the very first thing you'll find on top is my rifle. Now, this is a 11.5-inch upper with a folding stock, a Vortex red dots, and a Streamlight ProTac weapon lights. This is kind of a custom upper build from one of my armorer buddies. It's got a BCM rail, but it's not all BCM compartments. I think this custom build kind of cost me around $400-ish just based on his own industry deals and stuff that I get and so on and so forth. Discount codes, all of that kind of stuff. Things I get for just being like a fireman and stuff, and things that he gets for owning a business, I get business, so on and so forth. Apologies for that. The delivery man showed up with some North American Rescue gear for ECT, and I'm just standing here with my rifle and whatnot. I had to go get my package and stuff. But yeah, nonetheless, pretty affordable, AR build. Definitely less than $1,000. The lower is a PSA. The 40 stock was a little bit of extra money, obviously, for the build, but it was something that I wanted in the build, obviously, to help save space and all that. Now, I know some of you guys may ask the question, Jeremy, what about gun laws being unconstitutional and so on and so forth? Why do you have a pistol brace on there? And I agree with you. I don't care if you follow gun laws at all. I really don't. Not my business. But for this, you kind of had the legal question to face. And for me, I knew I wanted to carry something shorter. I didn't want to carry a 16-inch rifle. I didn't want to pin and weld. That just seemed silly. So I was kind of like, okay, for this, I'll put a pistol brace on it because, I don't want a good deed of me stopping an active shooter potentially with this build to jeopardize, you know, the outcome legality wise of me conducting those actions based on the fact that, I have a illegal SBR because it's big scary. Or there just be additional consequences. They say, yeah, you had a good shoot, but we figured out that was a illegal SBR. The ATF seized it. Now you're getting a felony charge, so on and so forth. So, kind of just avoided that as a whole by putting a pistol brace on there. It just didn't seem like the hill to die on. Um, you know, if you are involved in some sort of self-defense shooting, you stop an active shooter, whatever it might be, the firearm that you use is being confiscated for the investigation until everything clears up. And then most of the time, it seems like you eventually get that weapon back, but sometimes you don't. So I didn't want a ton of money dumped into this AR for that fact, and the fact that there is the potential someone breaks into this car and takes this. That's just the reality of that it is. I hope not. It's a nice little build. But also, the pistol brace from the legality standpoint, I didn't want anything coming of that. Basic things that you look for in an AR, red dot, weapon light, sling, Minuteman Apparel sling. Love this sling. It was like $35. At normal price, that was really good. And then a standard 30 round mag. Pretty simple, straightforward build. Great little build. Make sure that you train with it. A lot of people may jump straight to placing their normal favorite top tier build rifle into their bag. I would not suggest doing that because you don't want to put a multi-$1,000, kind of name brand AR in there with the ACOG and your IR light and your name brand Surefire weapon light and the can and all that kind of stuff. You kind of want to look from a more affordable, standpoint. Is this, $800-900 rifle build going to do the job just fine? Yeah, outside of, me shooting at the range every once in a while and putting some training rounds through it, it's not a rifle I expect to survive going to the field for weeks on end and thousands upon thousands upon thousands of rounds and so on and so forth. It's meant to do a job for a very short period of time. Let's accept that and that is a reasonable reason. So, the next thing that comes out of my bag actually has nothing to do with active shooter response. It just happens to be my gas mask, just based on how the bag is packed. Since I had all of this, in here, I thought, why not go ahead and just start keeping a gas mask in the car with me? Yeah, I live here in the country, but who knows where I might find myself one day. So I threw the gas mask in here as well. We'll just kind of toss that to the back, just like I would if there was an actual active shooter going on and I needed to get to my stuff. So the next thing I pull out is my plate carrier. Now, this is the HRT rack plate carrier. And it's a very kind of slick style build, very lightweight build, but it's also somewhat built out like a, traditional, standard rifleman plate carrier. There's not too much taken off the top, if you know what I mean. Up front, have the HRT Maximus placard, 3 rifle mags, 2 pistol, obviously that go to my CCW, and then some admin pouches that have things like chem lights, white lights, little cloth to clean up my optic. Over here on this side, I've got some note-taking gear, a multi-tool, some reference cards, stuff like that, handcuff keys, all that kind of stuff's up front. And then obviously a full-size trauma IFAK. This is the ECT Swift Dangler. Is clearly identified with a medical patch on here that happens to be IR. On the right side of my cummerbund, I have a fighting knife because I just put fighting knives on all of my kit. Is a fighting knife should be a standard piece of equipment necessarily for active shooter response? No, probably not. But you know, I've got one, and it's slick. It doesn't matter. I have one. And then I have an IWA M13 banger. If I need a banger, we're in a really, really bad day, but I would be completely lying to you if I said that I don't not want this. If that makes sense, if I have the opportunity to deploy this before I turn a corner to shoot a bad guy in the face, fantastic. I'm glad I have it. Now, obviously, this is kept in my vehicle year round, so depending on the weather that you have and how it's stored and all that kind of stuff, you may need to replace this, every 6 months, at least probably once a year, because it may become defective just because you're not following the manufacturer's recommendations for storage. But I have an IWA banger on here just in case somebody needs to get a little wake up call. And then on the opposite side, I have a radio pouch for my EDC radio. Depending on the situation, I need to talk to my local guys, say I'm responding to some sort of mutual aid assistance call, whatever it might be. I can have my radio on my kit and I'd be able to communicate with everybody. Then on the back, we are set up with dual flanking tourniquet pouches facing down. I have always carried more than one tourniquet, and I like being able to reach at least one with every hand. So I have my first tourniquet centered on my dangler in front of me, and then I have a tourniquet on each flanking side. You'll notice that the tourniquets face downwards, and a lot of people ask me why. Well, it's because if this is on the rear side of my cummerbund, I'm not going to be able to deploy a tourniquet like this. I'll have to reach to the rear side of my cummerbund and pull the tourniquet down, out, and away and bring it in front of me. If I'm missing this hand, congratulations. I can reach this tourniquet and pull it out. Whatever it might be. So I have dual flanking cummerbunds. It's kind of a standardized thing that I do. In addition, I have some flexi cuffs. Unfortunately, you can't just, dome bad guys for shooting innocent people. If they surrender, they throw down their arms, whatever it might be, you've got to, detain them and hand them off to law enforcement. Very unfortunate. Hopefully they meet their fate later. And then real big on the back of my plate carrier, it says medic with a big IR patch. I am a paramedic. I work full-time in fire and EMS. So, this is a way for me to help identify myself with other first responders, showing up, specifically law enforcement. Depending on your local cops, it will depend on how they interact with you. I had a very good conversation with a SWAT officer on the ECT podcast on cops' mixed responses to civilians responding to active shooters. Some cops will, see a guy in a very professionally set up plate carrier that's communicating well, moving well, and they're like, all right, cool, we're gonna go shoot this bad guy in the face. And other cops will be like, oh no, leave here immediately and go see a cop and give your statement and put down your gun, give us that shit. It's a whole thing. So some sort of identifier is going to be important. And this brings up, another fact. I'm not going to take it out of the bag, but you should have a method of labeling and identifying yourself with law enforcement or specifically with dispatch if you call in the active shooter call. Probably about 10 years ago at this point, it kind of became popular to be like, oh, I keep a traffic vest in my truck. That way, if there's an active shooter, I can call dispatch and say, I'm wearing the green or orange traffic vest. Well, over the past year or two, I have seen, reports of people conducting either levels of crime or small, active shooter style situations while wearing traffic vests. So now that SOP is out the window. So you should have something custom specific to you or your preparedness group in your area that easily identifies you from everybody else. And you can pass that along to dispatch. Speaking of signaling and identification, the next item that I have in my bag here that sits underneath of the plate carrier is this VS17 panel. Not necessarily super applicable to the active shooter style things, but it's another kind of vehicle preparedness item that I keep, just like the gas mask and everything else that I keep in my car. Good for, signaling if you're lost, if you're broken down, you're marking an LZ while you're out backpacking because your buddy fell and now has double femur fractures, whatever it might be. Hell, it may come in handy for helping signaling things and help setting up medical stuff during an active shooter scenario, kind of post scenario when the treatment side starts. whatever it might be. So a good preparedness item to have, it costs $15 and takes up no room at all. So something worth having. Next, I have a pair of Walker's Electric Ear Pro. I don't know if in the moment I would ever remember to put these on. Yeah, when I do drills and I train and do all that kind of stuff, yeah, I take the time to put these on after the plate carrier and so on and so forth. But maybe this is just one of those small things I eventually miss. But being able to hear, protecting your hearing, be able to more efficiently communicate, all of that kind of stuff is going to be important. So have an extra pair of walkers and put them in your vehicle, probably not, a horrible idea. You got to change the batteries, once a year or twice a year, whatever it is like that you like to do. So, pair of walkers, cheap, affordable, effective, not a bad thing to have. Lastly, I got a few spare mags sitting down at the bottom of my pack. Obviously, if I go through all of my rifle mags on my plate carrier, plus one in the gun, plus 4 pistol mags, I'm having a really, really bad day if I'm returning to my car to, top off on ammo. Nonetheless, it's something I keep in there because it takes up no room at all, and it doesn't hurt me at all to throw a couple extra loaded P mags in my bag because I've got 100 P mags that are loaded. So throw a couple extra in there. It doesn't hurt anything. If you need more ammo because the situation's gotten that bad, well, you may be lucky that you've got a few extra to help top you off. And that's really about it for what I have in the actual kit bag myself. You know, you could put a ton of different stuff in there, but that doesn't mean that you have to. You don't necessarily need a plate carrier with 8 mags and 2 bangers on each side and so on and so forth, and then a super expensive rifle build with a suppressor and your IR laser, and then your nods are also stuck in your bag, and all of that. Are there applications for all of that? Sure, absolutely, but the everyday person probably not. Plus, again, it kind of puts forth the part of the conversation about there's the potential for it to be stolen. So try to keep the stuff that you put into your vehicle, relatively affordable, relatively mid-tier, but don't sacrifice a ton of quality, either. We're expecting this gear to help save and protect lives. We don't want to cheap out on it too much, but we don't necessarily need to drop the whole bank to do so. Unfortunately, guys, we're moving into a time where bad shit's going to happen, and it's going to require good people who are willing to put bad guys down for us to kind of move on, move past, and succeed. I know we all want to pretend that things aren't getting worse and that the threats are not changing, by the day. The threats we faced from the active shooter perspective in 2014 is much different than it is in 2024, just like 2014 was much different than 2004. So we kind of just gotta grow up, suck it up, and prepare to the best of our ability. And if you're a person that finds yourself willing to step forward, willing to take on this responsibility, willing to put yourself out there, then I applaud you, and I suggest that more people find it in themselves to do the same. Regardless of how you decide to set all of this up, guys, just make sure you think it through, make sure it makes sense, make it logical, and you'll be just fine. That's all I've got, guys. As always, train hard, train often.